Hey, good morning. This is Adrian, one of the pastors at Twin Lakes Church, joining you for this morning's devotional. This past weekend, Renee talked about the Holy Spirit in the church services at Twin Lakes Church. And I have a sort of interesting history when it comes to the Holy Spirit in my walk with God. I became a Christian at a church when I was in junior high, and it was a Korean church that was very charismatic, you might call it. And it was like a lot of practicing of the spiritual gifts like prophecy and speaking in tongues and healing and casting out of demons. A lot of that happening during the services. And I had a lot of experience with that. And but one of the issues was that church was a very unhealthy culture, not because of the things that had to do with the Holy Spirit or the gifts, but because of leadership. And I've talked about it before in church, but it kind of became a cult, very controlling leadership. I eventually left that church, and one of the things that happens when you leave an environment like that, you go as far away from anything that reminds you of that as possible. And spiritually speaking, and in my walk with God, I started to be very skeptical when it came to anything that had to do when people talked about the Holy Spirit or gifts or anything like that. There's a word called, or people who would call themselves cessationists that would say that today the gifts of the Spirit are done, they don't exist anymore. And I was getting to that place, and some of you might be there. But what happened to me, I think as I matured and I found some healing, is I grew to, and as I read the Bible, I grew to understand more and more about the Holy Spirit. You know, the Spirit of God is not just this thing that we read about, but it is part of the Trinity. It is the one part of the Trinity of God. He is God, the Spirit of God. And as I began to really let that truth sink in, that this Spirit of God that Jesus told his disciples that God would bless us with after Jesus left. And the Bible tells us that when we, place our faith in Jesus and accept his free gift of salvation, he blesses us. He fills us with the Holy Spirit. In Romans chapter 6, verses 10 and 11, it says that, the same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead now lives in you, lives in me. And, I used to think, okay, I believe that, but maybe that's just about comfort and about, just not feeling alone, which that is true, that you were never alone because the Spirit of God lives within you. One of the things I realize is, it says it's the Spirit of God, and he lives inside of us. Now, that is a very supernatural, amazing, mysterious thing that the Spirit of God dwells in us and empowers us to live this life he has called us to. And if that is true, that the Spirit of God lives in us, then things must change. We must change. And anything can be possible. And so I've matured and in a more holistic way, thinking about who the Holy Spirit is. And I'm still on a journey discovering who God is as I walk with him and spend more time with him and learn more about who God is and what he's done and what that means for me. My encouragement to you today is, no matter where you are, or what you believe about the Spirit or the gifts of the Spirit or anything like that, you can know this one truth, that the Spirit of the living God lives inside of you when you place your faith in Jesus and accept his free gift of salvation, of redemption. That is an amazing truth. Later in Romans, it says that, earlier I said Romans 6, it's Romans 8, but later in Romans 8, it says that same Spirit allows us to call God our Father, our Abba. What an amazing truth that is. Be encouraged by that. You are a child of God through the Spirit of God who lives in you. Have a blessed day, and hope to see you sometime if you're in Aptos at church. Bye-bye.